I recently made this shrug. You can also call them sleeves. In this video, I walk you through my thought process in designing the pattern and what I actually did to make it. This is the yarn I used for this project. This is Lime brand Landscapes. It is a weight 4 yarn that calls for a 6.5mm crochet hook, and it's 100% acrylic. I'm going to use a 6.5mm crochet hook, just like it suggests. So before I started the actual project, I tested out the pattern on this little sample here. This is a mini version, so that's the neckline. And if you unfold it, you can see this is almost like a rectangle. So as you can see, these are the sleeve stitches. And these are the panel stitches. So this will form the front panel. That will form the back panel. These are the sleeves. Usually I make a single panel stitches around double a single sleeve stitches, but because this is a crochet sleeves I want the sleeves to be a bit tighter, meaning this part can be smaller and the panel part can be relatively bigger. So if the sleeve is still X, I'm going to make the panel 3 times that stitch number instead of 2 times. On this sample, it is twice. I already know this works, but I'm not sure about 3 times, so I needed to experiment on the actual yarn. Make a slip knot first. So I started with a chain. This chain is the neckline, so I just yarn over and pull it through, yarn over, pull it through again, and I continue doing that to make a chain. So this is how my chain sits around my neck. I want it to be loose like that so it's more casual, but when it's stretched, I also don't want it to fall off my shoulders. So that's about the length I want my chain to be. And when I wear the sleeves, this chain will be slightly stretched. So when my chain is slightly stretched, it's about 26-27 inches, and that's around 66 to 69 centimeters. I counted my stitches. I have 55 stitches. Now I'll need to make it work with the stitch number requirement. So basically it's about how I distribute the stitches. So the 55 stitches is for all the stitches here. If my sleeve is X and the front back panel is 3X, then together I have 8X. And I also need to leave 1 stitch for each corner. I have 4 corners, so extra 4 stitches would be here. And all of them together, it needs to be around 55 stitches. It doesn't have to be exactly 55 stitches. I guess I can still get rid of a few stitches here and the neckline would be fine. So if the X equals 6, this could be 52 stitches, which is not too far from 55. So I got rid of 3 stitches. I needed to make sure I actually have 52 stitches. So after that, I joined in the round. You need to make sure this chain is not twisted when you do this. So it just means all the stitches need to be facing the same direction. And then I insert my hook in the very first chain and then join in the round by yarning over and pulling that yarn through the loops on the hook. And I double checked again to make sure the chain is not twisted. Okay, so this is the neckline. The join would be the center of my back panel. Here I realized the stitch number of the back panel needs to be an odd number because the join here needs to be at the center, otherwise it wouldn't look as good. So if X was 6, then the back panel would be 18 stitches. This join wouldn't be at the exact center. So what I decided to do is make both of the panels 1 stitch less and add it to the sleeve. This way I don't need to change my overall chain number. If I only subtract stitches and not add it back, I'll need to redo my chain number. So that means my final sleeve stitch number is 7 for each sleeve, and the final stitch number for each panel would be 17 stitches. So that means back panel 17 stitches, front panel 17 stitches, 2 sleeves, 7 stitches for each. Also, I completely forgot, the sleeve and the panel actually do need to be odd numbers because of this mesh pattern I'm going to use. And luckily I needed to make the back panel an odd number, so I took 1 stitch off and that becomes an odd number. So does the front panel, and I add that 1 stitch back to the sleeve. It was an even number before, but now it's an odd number. So in one word, the sleeve stitches and the panel stitches both need to be an odd number. Before I continued, I used 4 stitch markers to mark each corner. I chain 1 first to secure the stitch so it doesn't come off. This first stitch I just slip stitched into would be the center back stitch. This back panel itself had 17 stitches. That 1 stitch is the center back. I should have 8 stitches here and 8 stitches here. So 8 stitches to the left of the center stitch, and then 1 stitch here at the center, and then 8 stitches to its right. So that stitch being the center back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Those are the stitches at the back. The next stitch is the corner stitch where I will be doing the increase. So I put a stitch marker in that stitch. And now I'm here. Next is the sleeve stitches. I should have 7. So I started counting from the very next stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then after that, the next stitch, I marked it again. And that's that stitch there. Now the next is the front panel. Front panel 17 stitches, just like the back panel. So I counted from the next stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And the next stitch, I marked it. And this marked stitch is this one now. Next is sleeve again, 7 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then I marked the very next stitch. So that is that stitch there. And then I should have 8 stitches left before I go back to the join. So I counted the rest of the stitches just to make sure. And that was right. By the way, that's not a stitch. That stitch is joined with the first one, and after you join them, they're on top of each other, so they become 1 stitch. So now I have a rectangle for the neckline, just like this one. Now that I set it up, I started round 1. So I began with a double crochet in the very first stitch. And because this double crochet is at the very first stitch, I actually replaced a chain 2 or a chain 3 with a stacked single crochet. Which means in the very first stitch, I first made a single crochet. So I insert my hook, pull yarn up, yarn over, pull through 2. And then in the left vertical loop, I made another single crochet. So I inserted my hook, pull yarn up, yarn over, pull through 2. And this stitch is gonna be my first double crochet. And of course I marked that stitch for me to be able to find it later when I come back. Now to create the mesh pattern, chain 1, skip the next chain. In the one after, make a double crochet. And to make a double crochet, you just yarn over, insert your hook in that chain, yarn over, pull yarn up, yarn over, pull through 2, and yarn over, pull through 2. And then I just repeat those 2 stitches, chain 1, skip the next chain, in the one after, make a double crochet, and then I continue doing that, chain 1, skip 1, the stitch after, make a double crochet. Here my next stitch is marked, which means I need to do an increase here, which means I work 3 stitches in this chain. So here I can do a chain 1, double crochet, chain 1 all in this stitch. So chain 1 counts as 1 stitch, and then double crochet in that marked stitch is the second stitch, and then chain 1 again as the third stitch. If you chain 1 and skip 1, you're not increasing. If you chain 1 and don't skip 1, you are increasing. Here, this chain 1, double crochet, chain 1 are all on top of this stitch, so that counts as an increase. I increased by 2 stitches. Then the next stitches are the sleeve stitches. I started with a double crochet in the very next chain. So after this double crochet, I continued with the same pattern, chain 1, skip 1, and in the next chain, a double crochet. And then this is the next increase spot that's marked. I'll need to do the same thing as I did here. So after this double crochet for the sleeve, I chain 1, work 1 double crochet in this marked stitch, and then chain 1 again. So 3 stitches in that 1 marked stitch, increased again by 2 stitches, and then from the next stitch I continued with the pattern as usual. So if a stitch is not marked, you just follow the pattern. If it is marked, then you do that increase thing. I had 4 stitches that are marked like that, so I just used the same increase method for each of them. And when I get back to the join, I didn't need to make a stitch in that because that's the center back. There's already a stitch there. So I just chained 1 and joined in the round by working a slip stitch in that marked stitch. So this round now look like that. At each increase corner, I did the same thing. I worked 3 stitches for that 1 marked stitch, a chain 1 double crochet and a chain 1. Now this center double crochet would be the new increase spot for the next round. So what I need to do here is take out that stitch marker and replace it in that center double crochet there. I mean, I could have done this as I was working this round, but I forgot, so I'm gonna do it now. For this round, it's always gonna be a double crochet that you're going to mark. For the next round, the pattern is different. The center stitch would be a chain 1. I will explain more when you get to that round. But yeah, that's round 1. I chained 1 to secure the stitch before I put it on to have a look at the size, and that looked okay, so I continued with round 2. I put my hook back in this loop, and in the marked stitch, which is the very first stitch, I made a stacked single crochet again to mimic a double crochet. So first 1 single crochet in that stitch, and then in the left vertical loop another single crochet, remark this very first stitch, and then I did the same pattern as round 1, chain 1, skip the chain 1, in the next stitch, which is a double crochet now, make a double crochet, inserting in both of the top loops, and then make a double crochet, repeat that pattern, chain 1, skip the chain 1, work a double crochet in the next double crochet. So I continued with this pattern until I reached the first increase spot. Over the chain 1, I made a chain 1 on top of that. The next stitch is a double crochet, and in this double crochet I needed to increase again, And since I just did a chain 1 here, the next stitch I make should be a double crochet. So I started with a double crochet in this increase spot, and then a chain 1, which is the second stitch, and then a double crochet again in the same stitch. So 3 stitches in this one double crochet. This 3 stitches being a double crochet, chain 1, then a double crochet. Now I need to mark this chain 1 because it's the center stitch. And then my next stitch is a chain 1. So I made a chain 1 on top of that, skipped that chain 1, next stitch double crochet, a double crochet in that double crochet. Then I continued with the same pattern. An easier way to understand it might just be you work a double crochet in the double crochet, you work a chain 1 over a chain 1, and when you get to that marked stitch, you start with a double crochet, then a chain 1, then a double crochet. Don't forget to mark that chain 1 in the center. Finish that increase and then continue. So I did the same thing at the other 2 increase spots and finished round 2 like that. When I get to this join, I did the same thing as I did here and joined in the round with a slip stitch and then marked stitch. And chained 1, started round 3. With a stacked single crochet again. Chain 1 over a chain 1, double crochet in a double crochet, and worked my way to this chain 1 that's marked. So I increased here again with the method I used for the very first round. The way I remember it is if I'm working an increase in a chain 1, I'm going to start with a chain 1 and then a double crochet in the space and then end with the chain 1 for the increase. If I'm increasing into a double crochet like this round, then I start with a double crochet, a chain 1, and then end with a double crochet. And then after the increase, I look at what the next stitch is. If it's a double crochet, then I work a double crochet in it. If it's a chain 1, then I work a chain 1 over it. And forgot to replace the marker in the new stitch again. So this time, I'll be placing it in the center double crochet. So by now, I pretty much had the increase pattern figured out. The next thing for me to do is just continue increasing in this pattern. Okay, so I've worked about 6 rounds here. The pattern of the color is really starting to show as I'm working more and more rounds. This is the yarn before and this is after. I actually chose these warm tones to go with my new rings. Aren't they just stunning? And in case you haven't noticed, I even went to get my nails done in gold to perfectly match these gorgeous rings. These rings are actually from Ana Luisa. They are a sustainable jewelry brand based in New York, and I love how they focus on creating luxury pieces that are still totally affordable and eco-friendly. I've been wearing these rings non-stop since they arrived. They have the cutest names. This one is called Andy, and this one's Stevie. I've been wearing them for a little over a month now, and I'm actually really impressed by how well they've held up. I've showered with them on and I don't see any sign of color fading. They still look as beautiful as the day I got them. I think that says a lot about their quality. I've always loved jewelry that speaks for itself, but it's actually hard for me to find jewelry pieces that fit my vibe because I'm all about bold, empowering statement pieces. I don't go for elegant ones as often, so finding Ana Luisa's variety was really exciting. They really nailed this one for my style, but of course they also offer dainty and delicate options for those who love that style as well. They have so many unique designs, so you're guaranteed to find something that feels totally you. With Black Friday around the corner, Ana Luisa will be having amazing discounts, so if you've been eyeing some statement jewelry or are already thinking about holiday gifts, now is the perfect time to check them out. It's honestly one of the best sales of the year for these kinds of high quality, stunning pieces. They arrive beautifully packaged and ready to gift. The sale is only for a limited time, so don't miss out on the chance to grab your favorites. You can use my link in the description below to find their website and check out their Black Friday deals before they're gone. So like I said, from there I just kept increasing, following this pattern, and when I have enough stitches here for them to wrap around my arm snug, that's when I stop. So obviously that wasn't enough, I need to do more rounds. When I worked about 8 rounds, I put this on myself and it just fits me. And now I know it's time to separate the sleeves. It's okay if it's a bit tight here because after separating the sleeves, both the body part and the sleeves are going to be a bit bigger. I continued working round 9 until I reached the first stitch marker. So here you can see my next stitch is marked. So this row is for separating the sleeves, and the main thing I need to do for this row is to connect the first stitch marker with the second one. And then all these stitches that I just skipped would become one of the sleeves. So like I said before, when you connect them, you can add some length to it. So on my first try, I didn't want to add too much length because I wanted my sleeves, especially around my wrists, to be narrow. I made a double crochet 2 together to connect these 2 parts, and that wasn't much length. But after I worked one sleeve, I realized to make my wrist tight, it has to be tight around my upper arm as well. Even though it probably looked good around the wrist, being too snug around the upper arm is really not flattering. It's not too tight to be uncomfortable, but it just didn't look as good as I expected, so I had to rip the sleeve and also rip that round where I separated the sleeves. So on my second try, I decided to add more length to the body and to the sleeves to make this more like a loose fit. For this round, I only need to rip it to the first sleeve. So what I did here is that I chained one and then worked a double crochet in this marked stitch. And then I made a chain of 5. Before I worked a double crochet in the next stitch marker. So I yarn over and then insert in this marked stitch, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Now this length is what I added to the sleeve. So that's a height of a double crochet, 5 chains, and then one more height of double crochet. Here I'll just mark the middle chain. That's a double crochet, that's a double crochet, 5 chains, that's in the middle. And I actually marked its back loop. So I just turn it like that, then place the stitch marker in that back loop. And then chain 1. In the double crochet right after the stitch marker, worked a double crochet. I then continued working the stitches following the pattern. And when I got to the third stitch marker, I did the same thing. So after this double crochet, chain one double crochet in the marked chain one, and then chain 5, skip all these stitches, get to the fourth stitch marker, and then work a double crochet in this. So yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and then chain one double crochet in this double crochet right before the stitch marker, and then I went ahead and finished this round. And then after that, chain one, cut this yarn, and of course my yarn was already cut, and pull it through. And this is what I have now. This is sleeve pattern test 1. The width is okay, it has some flare, but I don't really like this part. I want it to be narrower, so I still needed to make some changes, but I wanted to attach the other sleeve as well so that I could try a different pattern on this sleeve to see if I could make it better. But this is how I attached both of the sleeves. I just located the center one of the 5 chains. I already placed the stitch marker in the back loop. And I attached my yarn into that loop with a slip knot. I insert it in that back loop and then pull the slip knot through. Chain 1 to secure that stitch. And then insert back into that stitch with a special double crochet. And then chain 1, skip the next chain, and in the one after, insert in the back loop. In its back loop, made a double crochet, and then this double crochet here, I see it as 2 stitches, so I chained 1, skipped the first stitch, in the second one made a double crochet. Here I tried to insert in 2 loops, and then here I decided to chain 1 again. Then the next stitch I worked directly into this double crochet right after the stitch marker. So I'm still following that pattern. And then from here I worked as usual, 1 chain 1, then 1 double crochet. After this double crochet before the stitch marker, I chain 1, 2 stitches here over this double crochet. I worked a double crochet in the first one, chain 1, skip the second one, and I have 2 chains here left. That's not a chain, that's a part of this double crochet, so that doesn't count. So the 2 chains are these ones. So in the first one, I made a double crochet in it. And when I did that, I inserted in the back loop chain 1, and that one is over this chain 1, and then I just slip stitched in the first stitch. So I just connected the sleeves. From the next round, I can work as usual. So I started with a special double crochet and then alternated between a chain 1 and a double crochet. So for the first sleeve, I pretty much just worked those rounds normally until just above my wrist. And then I did one increase round here and then some normal rounds. But I didn't really like the shape around here. I want my wrist, just around my wrist, to be just a bit narrower before it becomes wider again. And I decided to do it from this round. That's after 9 plain double crochet rounds. On my second try, I did some decrease here so that my wrist is narrower, and then some increase here. This is before, this is after. So I first did 9 rounds of plain double crochets, and then did my first decrease round at round 10. I only decreased at the beginning of the round, so this is what I did. I worked a double crochet 2 together over these 2 stitches. So in the first stitch, I made a single crochet first, and then insert in the left vertical loop, pull up a loop. With 2 loops on my hook, I yarn over, inserted in the second double crochet, pulled up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, and then yarn over, pull through 3. So that is 1 stitch sitting on top of this 2. If you want, you can mark it. And then for the rest of the round, I just followed the pattern normally. And then when I come back and slip stitch, I slip stitch in the marked stitch. So that's 1 round of decrease. I did 4 more rounds following the same pattern. So in the first stitch, I first made a single crochet, and then in the left vertical loop, pulled up a loop. I'm working these 2 stitches together, so yarn over, insert in that double crochet, and pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 3. And that's the first stitch of this round. So it's the same as last round, and then you work as usual. So this is the second decrease round. Like I said, I did 5 decrease rounds in total. So that was 5 rounds. Then for the next 4 rounds, I just did plain double crochet rounds. So that means no decrease at the beginning of the rounds. After 4 rounds of those, I did 1 increase round. So I increased in the very first stitch. In the first stitch, I worked a special double crochet, chain 1, and then a normal double crochet, all in the same stitch. So that's 3 stitches in 1 stitch. You can mark the very first stitch. And then for the next 3 double crochets, I did them normally. So 3 double crochets like that, and then chain 1, In the next double crochet, I increased again. So in that double crochet, I worked the double crochet first, chained one, and then one more double crochet in the very same stitch. And then the next 3 double crochets, work them normally again. Chained one, increased in the next one. So double crochet, chain one, double crochet. And then I have 3 double crochets left. I work them normally to the beginning of the round. Slip stitched in the very first stitch that's marked. And then the next 2 rounds are plain double crochet rounds. So a special double crochet in the first one, chain one, skip this chain one, in the second double crochet here, work a double crochet. Continue with the pattern. This is the first plain double crochet round. And this increase follows the same pattern, so you just double crochet, chain one, double crochet here, chain one, skip this, double crochet here. So it still follows the same pattern. So after 2 plain rounds, I did another increase round. The pattern is the same as the last increase round. So in the first stitch, work a special double crochet, chain one, and then a regular double crochet in the same stitch. Increased in the first stitch, and then again the next 3 double crochets are normal double crochets, no increase. And then increase in the next double crochet. So that's a double crochet, chain one, a double crochet in the same stitch. And then you'd work 3 double crochets again, and then increase, continue repeating that. So near the end of the round, I only need to do 2 normal double crochets, and then I slip stitched in the first stitch, and then after this, I did another 2 plain double crochet rounds. After that, I just fastened off. And then you can use a yarn needle to weave these in. I just hide them behind the first stitch of the round on the wrong side. So that's pretty much the whole thought process behind this shrug. Thank you, Ana Luisa, for sponsoring this video. Remember to check them out, guys. Go click the link in the description box and use my code if you find something you love. Hope you guys have fun with this project. See you next time.